Kevin Stefanski tested positive for COVID. Browns obviously have their head coach not available to be on the sidelines. He's also the guy that calls the plays for the offensive side of the football that's been so good. That means Alex Van Pelt, the quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, slides into play calling duty, and Van Pelt realizes and admits it's going to be a little different, both for him and the way the game is called.
Try to do it as well as I can. I really don't have an approach. Obviously, I have a good feel of Kevin and how he's called it throughout the course of the season. I want to stay true to his beliefs in offense, and I feel the same way. So, obviously, it'll be a little bit different just because of the nature. Nobody calls it the same, but hopefully, it'll be very similar. We've had a lot of success offensively, and my hope is to, at the end of the game, there's not too many times where he's yelling at his TV, going, "What the heck are you doing?"
Yes, that would be good. Let's bring back in Bud Shaw. And Bud, there is a little bit of an advantage, and we're looking for anything at this point, but you don't really know the tendencies, and he's going to stay true to Kevin Stefanski, but you can't try to call the game like Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. I think I get back to this idea that they need to get off to a decent start over there, not only for the typical reason would be, well, you're playing on the road in a place that's going to be filled with the other team's fans, and that's not going to be the case, obviously. But it's still a comfort level that favors the Steelers. And I think from a Baker Mayfield standpoint, he can say all the right things this week, but if they get off to a bad start with some questionable calls, he's going to be looking over his shoulder at a new play caller, wondering if this guy's going to be able to help him win a game. I like the fact that Mayfield is the kind of personality that he is, because I think in his mind, he thinks he can go in there and make some big throws against that secondary and still either, compete or beat a team that a lot of people don't give him much chance of doing. I think there's a lot of that house money feel to this game, and I think that suits him pretty well.
Yeah, I would agree. Keep in mind, this is a guy that was a walk-on twice. So, this is now he's trying to walk onto the NFL playoffs and walk away with a win, but I would agree. I think he probably looks at that as a challenge. The other thing about it is Pittsburgh fell behind huge to the Indianapolis Colts in that the one game that they've won in their last 5. Falling behind to the Indianapolis Colts is a little different than the Browns with the run game that the Browns have as well. I think that's kind of the recipe for the Browns to win. A couple of turnovers and get ahead early.
Yeah, and we've seen, at least I've seen in watching Pittsburgh, that they're getting off to slow starts. Teams are jamming their receivers early in these games and getting up to the line of scrimmage. And those guys have had a lot of drops. That's not, that's not a sure thing, throwing a short pass to a couple of their wide receivers. So I think there's an opportunity here still. I realize that the deck is stacked. But, again, I think this feeling of, hey, nobody thinks we can do it, but we have two all-pro running backs and a quarterback who's been pretty darn good for most of the second half of the season. That gives them a good chance, or if not a good chance, certainly a fighting chance.
And you mentioned the quarterback. Baker Mayfield obviously has developed a really good rapport with Alex Van Pelt. Van Pelt will be calling the plays, and Baker Mayfield talked about just how comfortable he is with Alex Van Pelt and feels like they're all in sync, along with Kevin Stefanski as well.
Obviously, much like my relationship with Kevin, been growing a lot as we've gone through these weeks, with everything starting on virtually and just getting to be around him more. We were in the same room for training camp in the first part of the year, but then going back into virtual, he's not that far removed from his playing days, just real relatable guy, but very understanding. Like I talked about, the open communication is pretty essential to what has been our success so far. And AVP is just like that. He wants to talk through it and hear our thoughts as well. And he wants the conversation to, for the most, whatever is the biggest benefit for the whole room.
And is it almost like a seamless transition to have him calling the plays instead of Kevin for you?
Yeah, I mean that line of communication's always been open between the three of us, but obviously there's going to be a few little different nuances with AVP calling it. But I mean, Kevin and him are still talking. We're all still having those conversations throughout the week, just like a normal game plan week would go.